Borough of Crafton meeting of April 14th, 2014. Flag salute. Flag salute would have been Mrs. Post. She is not here. How about Ms. Amendola?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amendola.
Here.
Ms. Amendola. Here. Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Post is absent. Ms. Wakefield is absent, but she's here on Skype.
I'm here. I'm not active.
She's not absent. She's electronically participating.
And Mr. Hayes.
Here.
Mayor Bloom.
Here.
And Director Beachy.
Yes. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the bill list of April 14th, 2014. So moved.
Second.
All right, second by Nina. Any discussion on the bill list? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Amendola.
Yes.
Ms. Amendola.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Ms. Wakefield.
Yes.
Mr. Hayes.
Yes. I was informed by the Borough Secretary that the minutes aren't prepared for us to vote on tonight due to some technical difficulty with her personal computer, so we'll delay the approval of those minutes to the following meeting. We did not also have anyone sign up for citizen comments, so we'll be skipping that part of our agenda as well, and moving right into, okay, we're going to go, Fire Chief Mike Crown is here, so we're going to skip in the discussion items. We're going to jump to public safety and talk about that one first, then we'll go back to administration and kind of work our way through. Public safety. Who wants to talk to this one?
Are there any questions for the fire chief while he is here? We're moving forward with the, looking at the consolidation study, and he's made himself available for us if we have any questions or anything arises he can answer for us. Does anyone have any questions? April? Joe?
I do not have any questions at this time. April, do you have any questions for the chief, the fire chief?
Not at this time. I expect there will be like a report after.
You want to give a 2-minute,
Yeah,
this doesn't involve any money at this point or
right.
anything, it's just.
There's no money at this point. What this is we did the preliminary study. Preliminary study came back, that's what you have about a month ago, and I came a month ago, we discussed. From that preliminary study, it was recommended to move forward. We still don't know what moving forward is, because that's what we're going to reassemble and look at what moving forward looks like. So we don't even know kind of what it's going to look like, because that's what the committee's going to do, is to adopt and discuss what, if any, a consolidation would look like. So
Have you established a time frame?
I think in a study it said 36 months. They would like it done within, they recommend it being completed within 36 months. But within that process, there's a lot of different things that need to play in. I talked to Roslyn Farmers Mayor Stover, and I'm going to right after this, that they are more or less looking at it as they want to still be a contracted service. So instead of getting involved and being part of the drawing up the consolidation, they would still lean towards just contracting the service as they normally do. And he referred that he thinks most likely that's what Thornburg would like to do. But we still have to talk to Thornburg.
Who's chiefly going to oversee the 36 months, right? That's the time period where they want to see something get accomplished, right?
Right.
Who's really championing that timeline so that at the end of 36 months we actually have something done?
Two people. The DCD is going to, the State Department of Community and Economic Development is going to appoint a liaison. And then the committee will appoint somebody to be the chair, to push this and champion to make sure that the timelines and everything are done in succession. And then after all the work gets done and it's drawn up, this is what we think it should look like, it comes back to the municipalities for a thumbs up or thumbs down. So it's kind of the process to get to an end if this is the way we're going to do it. So it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. But throughout the course, there's, bylaws, laws, all those types of things that are gonna need looked at, budgets and all those things, the big pictures are gonna be looked at.
What do you recommend as far as keeping us in the loop for the 36 months? Is it a
Uh,
quarterly?
I would recommend, what we're asking is tonight, if you could appoint somebody to that committee, the steering committee, and maybe an alternate to the steering committee. So therefore, they can, I can come back and discuss it from time to time, or that person, your appointee, can come back and discuss, and keep everybody in the loop. Also, by our minutes of the meetings, hopefully, and all those kind of stuff will be assembled and dispersed as it is.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? No? All right, we'll tackle this, we have to make a motion for this, right, for the appointees at the next meeting? Okay, so we'll figure out who we think makes the most sense for the primary and the alternate, and we'll vote at that at the next meeting and let you know.
That's fine. And then I know Carnegie, from what I understanding, is going to attack it either at the last meeting of this month or the first meeting of next month. So we'll have a little an understanding of who's actually on board.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, what else? Yeah, did you have, Fred, did you have anything to speak to regarding the animal control service? I did get an email from Bob saying that was a fully executed contract. Did you have
Yeah, it
anything
looks
else?
like everything's okay with it.
Yeah, so there was some discussion back and forth around the language of the contract. I understand it's got worked through and it's been signed and that's an executed contract, so that's behind us. Moving on from public safety, let's jump up to administration and just kind of like work our way down. So, Nina, do you have anything on administration?
I'm not sure if everyone had an opportunity to review the Comcast franchise agreement, but I believe that there has not been an increase. It was a 10-year agreement, so, everything appears to be in order. I thought that everybody previously agreed that we were okay to move forward with raising it to 1%. Any questions? And then regarding the employee handbook, I just had a couple of things that I noticed that were missing, like the benefits piece, just kind of summarizing what benefit package we're offering, not the specifics of the package, but that we offer medical, dental, vision, EAP, etc. Like whatever it is that we offer is missing from like getting started, new hire. I would kind of throw that in there. And then also as part of the new hire is being drug tested. So we mentioned that in our drug and alcohol policy that we can drug test for these particular reasons, but up front in the beginning under new hire for employee background and reference checks, we should say there that we do a drug and alcohol test prior to employment. Other than that, I thought that it looked really good.
Oops, I had a question on that. If you go with the way it is now, the template, and then you say anything that's not included in this handbook to refer to the resolution that we adopt every year, because that specifies contract people, what they have, it specifies what the non-contract people have. And
Okay.
it includes the benefits, because
Okay.
they're different packages. So it makes reference to if it's not included in the handbook to refer to the current year's wage resolution. That would take in.
Or just, I didn't realize that this was gonna be for both, so that definitely helps. Maybe something just stating that you would have to see something separate based on contracted versus non-contracted.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So that language could be in there, so if it's not in that handbook.
Right.
It's somewhere
It's a
else.
separate piece. Right. And then regarding the ethics code, I know that April had submitted a document to be put on the cubby. I agree that we definitely need a code of conduct / ethics code. So I have some information that I also wanted to bring to the table to include in that. I don't have that for today, but we definitely need to adopt or add or an ethics code of conduct type information, separate from our employee handbook.
So when, so the one that April had suggested is already out on Cubby and it's there for our feedback and comment. When can yours, changes or suggestions to it
Is
be
it
out there?
something that you and I can talk about and have a discussion about?
Sure.
Okay, so if we can, as I don't necessarily need to put out a completely different one, just maybe adding some things and making some.
Okay, so let's take the, if, I still request that everyone, let's make this an action item, right? Let's, everyone, please, if you haven't already, review what April has posted out there. Let's give ourselves a deadline of the following meeting to give out any comment around the ethics, right? Between now and then, I'll meet with Nina to go over what I think her suggestions are, and either I or she will recommend that as part of, the next 2-week deadline to give in comments. If we don't get any comments, over the next 2 weeks, we'll just assume that it's acceptance, right? That what April has put it out there is great. So please comment if you feel it's appropriate or you have changes to it. And clearly something will be coming from Nina and I, after I look at hers. So we won't vote necessarily on it at the following meeting because, we'll just be, it's the deadline for the feedback. But I think, once we adopt that or once we incorporate the feedback, talk to April, get her agreement, this is something we can actually move on within the next month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The one question I had about this was the very last line in, it's of the Borough Council that run and maintain for the government of, and it says shall be liberally construed and strictly enforced. How is the enforcement going to be done? Who's going to enforce it, and how is it going to be done?
Well, as far as meeting etiquette, I would enforce the meeting etiquette, right, as it relates to the ethics. But, as in terms of enforcement of ramifications of something, violation of it, I don't know. Did April did it talk about those specifics? I don't think there's much. It's more of just it's an agreement among council about how to operate. It wasn't. Its intent was not to be about what would happen if you don't meet those that specific, the way if you don't handle yourself according to the document, it doesn't talk about what could happen to you as an individual.
Well,
Right, I mean, the gist of the document is to hold ourselves to an accountable standard amongst the group itself. We are all elected officials. That being said, there are things that as a group of elected officials, we can, enforce how we see fit. And Joe, I think the solicitor has given you some advice on some of those issues.
Mm-hmm.
well, and I've read through other ethics policies for other municipalities. They usually have some sort of a committee or board set up of some sort that will take the policy and make decisions. Because my concern is if we do have a policy like this, how are we going to make decisions on who's, ethically challenged or not? To me, in my eyes, it could become political. And I don't think we can, make those decisions about ourselves. I think somebody, some other entity would have to make decisions.
I think, just to add on to you, is that we also need to have a disciplinary action plan. I'm pretty sure that in the bargaining agreement, there is, first infraction, second infraction, third infraction, right? Something happens and this is what happens, and if you do it again, then this is what happens. But we don't have anything necessarily, like when it comes to attendance abuse or, showing up late for work or no call, no show, like what happens? same type of thing. If someone does violate the code of conduct, what happens? So I would agree with you that something needs to be in there as well.
You couldn't, you would have to fall back on the borough code, the way I would see it, as far as, for this very action. You know, there's sections in the borough code that. Right, I'm talking about the ethics
Well,
code. You're
it's
talking
gonna be
council.
both though.
Pardon?
It should be for anything, for council and or in regular employees and or what happens to bargaining employees.
Well, the elected officials are governed by what's in your borough code,
Right.
okay? And, you know, employees are governed by council. So if somebody's making accusations against a member of council, and what they would be, that regardless of what your ethics code would say, you would still have to fall back on which the guidelines are that are set up in your borough code as far as elected officials go. You know, I don't think that you can have one ethics code for paid employees versus elected officials.
Okay.
I don't think that that would work.
I mean, I like the idea of this, but when you talk about the state ethics commission, I mean, there's ramifications if somebody just throws it out there every time that this person's unethical, and they accuse somebody of being unethical. There's penalties for that if they abuse of that. And what's to stop this particular policy from becoming abusive? That's my concern.
David, what in the policy exactly would you feel could become abusive?
Well, I would just say if there were a group of us that were soured on another member, they could basically gang up on that member of council and use this as a tool if we are making decisions on our own decisions on ethics. If there is not an outside entity, checking on this to make sure that we're not abusing this, who's to say that we will not abuse it?
I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement.
So let's, we should probably take it under advisement then about enforcement, right? I mean, my thought reading this was that we were collectively holding ourselves to a standard, some standard, a new standard. It certainly doesn't circumvent or change anything about the state ethics standard, right? We're all being held to that as a member of an elected official of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So as far as policing our own standard, I would expect us to do it ourselves. When you say beat up on someone, right? I mean, it's not clear to me exactly what that would mean, right? What could be done. Council members are still going to have an opportunity to speak. The council members still have an opportunity to vote, right? Nothing changes about that. But we're deciding to hold ourselves to a standard, and we'll self-police that ourselves to that standard. If we want to talk about something more formal about the policing of it, I'm certainly open to it, right? But let's make recommendations and see how we can weave that into the code of ethics, right? But again, this is something I think that is a standard we collectively want to hold ourselves to, and as such, right, we should be able to police ourselves to that standard. And as far as we've already talked a little bit about meeting etiquette, right? If we violate meeting etiquette, where we talked about using profanity at meeting, we're going to take an adjournment, right? We're going to take an adjournment for 15 minutes until any offending party can get themselves under control or not. If they can't, the meeting will end, right? So that's in some respects the self-policing we're going to do on that item. But if there's other suggestions on how best to hold ourselves to that standard, suggest it, right? And we'll weave it into the document as we can.
I just think if we're it's a conflict of interest if we're managing our own ethics.
I don't follow that. What do you mean?
Well, if we're making decisions on the ethics of someone else, or managing our own ethics, To me, it's a conflict of interest. That means we get to decide here as a group whether we're ethical or not.
Well, no, I mean,
You said it's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You said it, I mean, we're setting an ethics code and we're saying this statement is a violation of ethics. This is a violation of ethics. This is a violation of ethics. So if you are violating one of them, there's really nobody to say yes he is or no he isn't, because it's right there. Yes, you did, you violated this code of conduct or this code of ethics.
Yeah, but there's
But
also.
if it's like, if it's someone saying, well, I just don't like what he has on today and he's violating something, and you're trying to force, I mean, is that what you're worried about?
Yeah, well, I'm worried about, let's say there's a group of members of council who, for whatever reason, decide that they're ganging up on one or two or more of other members of council because of differences of opinion.
But a
Then
difference
that-
of opinion isn't necessarily a violation of code of conduct, right?
No, but code of conduct can also be based on someone's opinion. And it can, the reason why they do have those safeguards on the state ethics commission is to protect, I mean, I could come to a meeting and say, look at this and, say to you, well, because you said this or did this, you're violating the ethics. It's basically kind of my opinion. And that information, now I could do that at all the meetings, and then, it's already out there in the public. If you keep saying that over and over and over again, sometimes those things stick. So, to me, with ethics, it really has to be done in such a way as to protect not only us as a group, but also as individuals, so it doesn't become tarnished or abused. I would be afraid that this could be abused.
no, I think we, let's go through it. I mean, nothing that we're not trying to do anything in the code of ethics that, that competes with, anyone's ability to act as an elected official, right? Everyone's still gonna get a chance to speak, right? There's not gonna be any ganging up on or beating up on or cutting someone off, right? We may end up having to get into a situation where, our discussions get long, we may have to curb discussions to amount of time, right? But nothing in our ethics is going to, in our policy, is gonna change, an ability for an elected official to speak or an elected official to vote, right? It's gonna be in addition to that, right? How we wanna operate with ourselves. I struggle a little bit with understanding exactly how the ethics could be used as a weapon, against another council member or group of council members. That's not clear to me. So if you guys wanna have some more discussion about it, we can have some more discussion about it, or we can take it, offline and put it as the feedback over the next 2 weeks.
Can we do that?
Well,
Well, let's hear what, Mr.
here's the
Phillips.
thing, Joe, you said everyone has a right to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a right to vote. But if someone's speaking and it's not said in a certain way, or it's said in a way that somebody didn't like, now it's a violation of an ethics code. Because, you're violating this ethics code because you didn't say it right or you said it differently than everybody else. Now, as I remember at the beginning, whenever we took our oath, was to uphold the Constitution. And the right to free speech is in that Constitution. And if I got something to say, if you don't like the way I say it, that's fine. Okay? But I'm not, everyone has the right to, speak the way they want to speak. Now, we, as the council members, everyone here has their own minds, okay? They have different opinions, that's why we have several different people on this council. If you have to walk on eggshells to speak your piece,
Yeah, I don't.
that's
no.
ridiculous.
No, I don't think it's that. I mean, but the ability
Because
to.
I'll tell you what, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I, for one, am not gonna walk on eggshells.
No, I don't think anyone is asking
I'm not
people
gonna
to
do
walk
it.
on eggshells, but we can certainly, as a body, ask people not to be offensive, We can certainly ask as a body not to be intimidating. We can certainly ask as a body not to raise voices, right? All of those things are legitimate to be in the ethics, right? And may in the perfect sense of the word compete with your ability to free speech, but that's what we're collectively saying is appropriate for this body,
And
right?
you can
My-
still have freedom of speech,
My voice,
being professional.
my voice is gruff, okay? I have a loud voice, I'll tell you that right now. Some people may misconstrue it as bullying, or, you know, the way you're talking to me. I have to watch and choose everything I say, instead of just speaking my mind. You can have it.
I have not been able to read this code. My cubby failed, so I have no clue what's in there. I think that there's valid points made by Nina, Dave, and Tom. You know, as far as somebody raising their voice in a council meeting, I don't think would be in violation of an ethics code. I mean, you look at Congress and you look at different bodies of government all around the world, you know, sometimes it gets to fisticuffs. It's just how it happens. But abusive language, foul language shouldn't be tolerated. But if there's a hot item that
Should not.
is being discussed, and up until it gets to a crescendo of somewhere along the line where you would gavel, I think that wouldn't be a violation because somebody gets allowed.
No, and I agree,
I
right?
think what April's aiming at is abusive language and threatening behavior.
Intimidating behavior, threatening behavior, abusive language, all of those, right? But just understand too, though, that, you know, gruff speaking or loud speaking can get to a point where you're not letting somebody else be heard. And if it got to that point, well, then would be potentially a violation, right? Because everyone has an opportunity to be heard.
Well, that's when the gavel comes down and you demand order, right? Get everybody 10 seconds to take a deep breath. You continue on, but until it gets, you know, if somebody's having an active discussion about any agenda item or whatever, and it's contentious, and they're trying to get it out, and somebody's cutting somebody off, that falls on you, okay? It's the way I would see it, you know, and if somebody gets out of control, you dismiss it, like you say, take an adjournment, and ask that person to dismiss himself from the meeting. Simple as that. But like I said, I haven't read what's on here, and I'd like an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I can give my opinion. I don't have a vote, but give my opinion. I'd like to read, be able to have the opportunity to read that.
Right, but I think let's all read it, like same action item, let's all read it, let's provide comment in the next 2 weeks. It sounds like the discussion here is that we're not gonna have difficulty coming to agreement on offensive language. We're not gonna have a disagreement around intimidating or threats, right? And as long as we can codify that, if you will, in our own code of ethics, right, that should be a way we can police ourselves against that, right? Okay?
I agree with that.
All right, let me, that was administration. One thing I wanted to point out to Nina, the handbook. Again, another action item, right? Everyone's got to read this employee handbook, right? We need feedback on the handbook. We've got to get this settled. One thing that became aware to me as we are in the midst of negotiations for the collective bargaining agreement for Public Works. It's part of the collective bargaining agreement as it is written now, that anything that is not covered by the collective bargaining agreement would be covered by the employee handbook. So anything that's missing, if you will, out of the collective bargaining agreement, they're going to be held to the employee handbook. Now, my read on it is most everything that's in the employee handbook is going to be in the collective bargaining agreement, so there's really, the employee handbook doesn't trump the collective bargaining agreement, but they need to see now this employee handbook before they can truly sign off on the collective bargaining agreement. So it becomes an action item now for us. If we want to get the collective bargaining agreement done, we've got to get the employee handbook done, we've got to submit that to Teamsters, and they have to look at it. So it becomes important now for us to get it finished from our standpoint, give them an opportunity to look at it, review it, because they're either going to ask us to change some aspect of it, or they're going to put that into the new CBA. So, you know, it is it's gonna be connect the dots, if you will. There'll be no collective bargaining agreement final decision until we have a decision on the employee handbook. So,
Okay.
we're being pressed. So same 2-week timeframe. Not hearing from anyone in the next 2 weeks means employee handbook is tip-top, right, ready to go. If not, please get the comments in, and we'll discuss it again.
What handbook's gonna cover?